Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you that are calling in for the first time, and that those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through our calls, bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people, you have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the potential reset of some of these other currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about the situation in Iraq today. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or the purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. And, of course, the most relevant piece of information would be the potential window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which, of course, will be the catalyst for everything else to follow. As for the last couple of weeks, we've maintained that we're looking at a window from between September of this year to January of 2021. And we've explained in some detail why we have a window of that girth, but we will be going into that again today. First, it's important to note that the reinstitution and eventual revaluation of the Iraqi dinar is something that will require the approval of the World Bank, the IMF, and the U.S. Treasury Department. And the holdup thus far remains corruption, primarily through the auctions and now the outlet centers. Corruption resulting in embezzlement, money laundering, and the funding of terror through the skimming of the hard dollars through the auctions and again at these outlet centers. Now, the new government of Iraq, the Al-Kazimi government, is finally taking serious action to combat at least some of these issues. The government's cracking down heavily on the outlet centers and ports of entry in Iraq. As a matter of fact, the Al-Kazimi government has sent military forces to the outlet centers with standing orders to shoot violators. So that's pretty harsh. Kazemi also is coming in the next week or so to the United States to meet with the President of the United States, so he certainly wants to be able to convey to the President that he's taking strong measures to deal with the issues, again, that the World Bank, the IMF, and the U.S. Treasury have. Now, the auctions have continued under the supervision of the Parliamentary Finance Committee. The funds are needed primarily for two reasons on the short term. First, they're needed to try help close the 2020 budget deficit that has resulted from the cost of a barrel of oil plummeting to such a degree. And second, they need funds to pay and to keep current the salaries for employees with an estimated cost of approximately $28 billion in 2020. Now, the resumption of the auctions has had a negative effect in terms of international trade and international investment into Iraq. As a result, the United States has retained its sanctions against Iraqi dinar. The EU did remove Iraq from their quote-unquote blacklist, but they still have Iraq listed as a very high risk in terms of international investment. But the Al-Kazimi government is attempting to resolve these high-risk issues, again, having to do with the auctions and the outlet centers. So, again, he is cracking down on the corruption at the outlet centers, and he is proceeding aggressively with the government reform package. Now, it's interesting that all of a sudden al-Maliki, and the State of Law Coalition have publicly strongly opposed these actions. Now, this is, of course, for two reasons. One, because Maliki and the State of Law Coalition are guilty parties with regard to this corruption. And second, because they know that the resolution of this corruption will lead to the reinstitution of their currency and Iraq becoming a sovereign nation. And, of course, the next issue that would be on the table would be the implementation of the accountability and justice law, which is the last thing that Maliki and his thugs want to see happen. Now, the CBI has also announced the establishment of the Bani Multiple Currency Platform. Now, this platform is designed to ensure the proper balance of payments for global trade. Now, the reason this is important is because there's no need to implement the Bani Multiple Currency System for international trade unless they expect the dinar to be utilized outside of the country, which again can only happen when the dinar is on the forex, meaning that it has revalued globally. We've also announced the establishment of the ECS, the Electronic Collection System. This is going to be used to avoid the exchange of hard currency in these auctions at these outlet centers, again, to eliminate the corruption, the embezzlement, the laundering of funds, and the funding of terrorist activities in the Middle East elsewhere. So, everything, again, is moving in the right direction. Not as quickly as we would like, but we still believe that the window of September to January is a very viable window, and we're leaning more toward the reinstitution happening closer to September than pushing it all the way to January. Now, I've gotten a lot of calls recently asking me exactly how this process is going to work, meaning getting to the reinstitution of the currency and then the revaluation. Now, no one can tell you with absolute certainty exactly how this is going to operate, but in a very general sense, I'd like to go over this one more time to resolve some of the confusion. Now, the first thing that needs to happen is the CBI needs to complete the project to delete the zeros. There will be no reinstitution in country until that is done and locked up. Now, for very complicated money supply reasons, once the currency reinstitutes in country, a single dinar should be worth approximately 83 cents in USD. So when the deletion of the zeros occurs, a $25,000 Iraqi dinar note will become worth 25 Iraqi dinars. And a 25 dinar note, whether it's a new note for 25 dinar or whether some individuals are still holding on to the old provisional 30 currency, those 3 zeros disappear. So a $25 dinar note or a $25,000 obsolete provisional dinar note will be worth approximately $20.75. Now, even that is a tremendous profit for those that are holding currencies, because one day you're holding a dinar note that's worth approximately 1/1100th of a penny, and the next day that same note is worth $20.75 USD. Now, the next thing that happens is that $25 dinar note, or all the dinar notes, will float in country, and they will most likely rise to at least a one-on-one par with the U.S. dollar. Why? Because the objective is for the Iraqi citizen to utilize their own currency in country. This is the only way that they can replace the U.S. dollar as their current reserve currency. They need to demonstrate, again, to the World Bank, to the IMF, and to the U.S. Treasury that they're utilizing their own currency. It is now a functional currency in country for the exchange of goods and services. Once this has been established and confirmed by the World Bank, the IMF, and the United States Treasury, they will move to place the IQD on the Forex. And at that point, it will probably quickly seek an equilibrium price somewhere between $3.50 and $4. Now, this is just a general overview. No one can tell you for absolute certainty how this is going to work out. If someone tells you that they can guarantee you or they have some special knowledge, turn the channel, hang up the phone, talk to someone else. No one can give you an absolute timeline as to how this is going to happen or with any certainty what the exact values will be when this all shakes out. However, from the day the currency is officially reinstituted in country to the day it hits the Forex should be approximately a period of 30 days, perhaps a little bit longer. So if the reinstitution happens as late as December 1st of this year, we could expect to see the reinstitution in calendar year 2020. Now, without getting into the complicated tax issues, if it were to go that late into the year, I would want to see the reinstitution in early 2020. And I've discussed on numerous calls why we want to see a reinstitution for exchange purposes and for tax purposes early in a given quarter. But when all this happens, we will adjust and review whatever options exist given the amount of the revaluation and exactly and precisely when it occurs. So again, given the information on the ground in Iraq, we have a window of September to January of 2021. Now, again, I know this sounds disappointing to some, but remember, September 1st is basically 6 weeks away. That is not a long period of time, particularly since a great number of our clients have had currencies for a decade, some longer. So we're near the end of all of this. My analogy would be in football, you're in the red zone. You're within the 20-yard line from a touchdown, and that's basically where we find ourselves right now. But I have to give you one qualifier. We're dealing with Iraq. So there's always the possibility of some X factor. But as we get closer and closer to this scenario, the only plausible out for Iraq is the reinstitution of their currency in country. They are simply running out of other options to pay their salaries and to try to close the trade deficit as the result of the drop in the price of oil. Now, for those of you that have not as yet gotten your affairs in order or may not understand what that involves, you are running out of time to get your affairs in order. To that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a program in place to assist you. It is a turnkey two-phase program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Phase 1 or pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is a specific reason why Trusts Unlimited has established a package of irrevocable trusts, and we're talking about Phase 1 here. And that's very simply because a package of irrevocable trusts is the best asset protection available domestically in the United States. Now, there are some other entities that individuals can establish to provide some level of asset protection. For example, individuals can establish LLCs, sub-S corporations, or family limited partnerships. These entities do provide some level of asset protection, but primarily by dividing business assets from personal assets. The problem here is that these currencies are not a business asset. They are personal assets. In addition, courts have ruled that LLCs, sub-S corporations, and family limited partnerships can be pierced for civil litigation if they are owned in the majority by one individual or closely held group. So these structures are going to be inappropriate for your needs. Now, some individuals have established revocable or living or loving trusts, and these trusts will exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. But the revocable or living or loving trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals, and we've seen a lot of them over the years, have established single irrevocable trusts, and they do provide more asset protection than the entities I just previously described. But there is an inherent flaw in the single irrevocable trust, and it is that all of your assets are housed within that one legal entity. So if any asset within that trust was involved in civil litigation, that would, again, necessarily drag all of the other assets into that litigation because, again, they're all owned by the same entity. That means that the best asset protection available is the package of irrevocable trusts. And in addition, that package must be established prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies, and I'm going to discuss briefly why that's the case. First, by establishing our package and assigning your currencies on paper to that trust package, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. Because assets within our trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along at the precise time these currencies have revalued, and you have many other much more important things you'd rather be doing. And lastly, the cost of a 6-year audit would probably be more than the cost of our asset protection trust. On the other hand, if your trust package is enforced pre-RV and you have assigned your currencies on paper to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's only a 10% chance of an IRS audit if the taxable event of this revaluation were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust package such as ours. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends in certain situations. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through the specially designed gift subtrust as part of our package. Because you're gifting through this subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. The language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currency, meaning you can gift to them the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. But because you're gifting through this subtrust, you will be able to manage, invest, and distribute this money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'm going to give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs in a state of $25 million. Now this estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number two, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title and to our trust package, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This will protect you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we have established a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer them to our trust. They subsequently revalue for 25 million. And now that you have 25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for a tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this important from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim understandably wants to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal persons or entities, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal person or entity not associated in any way with the car accident. So your package of trusts work very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of irrevocable trusts prior to the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, a holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2. All of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. And this is very, very important for your future. I'll just make mention of one benefit here. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have also expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is with the transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there as well. With this newfound wealth, you're going to want and need a lot of information about the more sophisticated tax strategies that you can utilize to legally reduce future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts in those banks. So this is another reason to get money out of the banks and at work in other markets. And lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets. And for that reason, you're going to want a substantial percentage of your net worth invested in tangible assets in order to avoid that volatility. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one gift subtrust which can at any time be converted to a standard subtrust, and 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But about a decade ago, when we decided to work with Dinarians, we knew that that price tag would be unaffordable for many. So by basically simplifying and back-end loading that trust package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust package. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies for the reasons that we've stated here. Now, I will be going through a Q&A in just a moment, but before I do, and for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you should seriously consider contacting us to get our initial no-obligation package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for just over a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, under our system of civil litigation, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title under our system of civil litigation can be taken from you. So the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. So again, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this call. I'm going to open the Q&A in just a minute. When I do, I will be giving you our contact information. So if the things we've discussed here are of interest to you, our newer callers, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our no-obligation package. It does include everything you need should you decide to apply for one of our trusts, but again, that's entirely your decision. It has a lot of information about us, about the trusts, and about these currencies. You're free to contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you in every way, and there will be no consultation fee. So I'm about to open the Q&A. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. First, we don't take service calls on the Q&A. This time is reserved for our newer callers. Our existing clients can contact us by phone or email if they have questions. And second, for obvious reasons, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trustswithans.unlimitedllc.com. That's trustswithans.unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trustswithans.unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last number. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394#. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be in our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, emails may go out on a weekly basis. So let's go to the Q&A here. Our first caller is area code 832. That's 832. Go ahead.
Hello, Jim. This is Ray here in Houston, Texas. How are you doing?
Yes, sir. Fine.
Good.
Friend.
It's good to Yes, I caught the tail end when you were talking about the lower denoms, about the 25K note and the difference of it going to the 25 bill. Can you explain again the significance of the fields in the lower denoms again, and how significant the fields are along with the exchange rate?
Okay, now those are technically two different subjects. The lower denoms and the coinage are the currency that would be necessary once they reinstitute. They're held at present by the 8 regional banks but have not as yet been released. What I'm talking about specifically was with the deletion of the zeros, the remaining provisional currency. Of course, when they delete the zeros, then the lower denoms and the coinage will be released. But if individuals within the country, Iraqi nationals, that still may possess some of the provisional 30 currency, it will be a $25,000 note will become a 25 dinar note, which will be worth approximately $20.75 at that time. Now, it will increase in value as the dinar note will increase in country to at least a par with the U.S. dollar. That will change once the currency revalues globally.
Okay, I see. All right, and also, too, are your hopes is pretty sure about it may revalue in September? I mean, because looking at some articles, in regards to the IMF spending time, and a lot of articles been coming out about, them getting ready as far as their sovereignty in Iraq. That's pretty good news to me that I've been seeing. And how do you feel about that?
Well, remember, the reinstitution is, let's just call it for simplicity, phase 1. The revaluation's phase 2. So even if the the IMF, it's tax time, sorry. Even if the IMF blesses the reinstitution in country, that does not necessarily mean that everything has been resolved to their satisfaction with regard to the revaluation globally. But it is a very good sign. Now, the window of September to January of 2021, we're referring to the reinstitution, not the revaluation.
Oh, the reinstitution. Okay. All right.
Now, but again, the revaluation could happen certainly within 30 days after the reinstitution if everything else falls into place. That could happen. I mean, the way things have been going for the last 10 to 13 years, well, it's since 2003, actually going on 17 years. It's about time we all catch a break and this thing get done. So that could happen, and we could see the reinstitution and a revaluation within 30 days. It could happen.
Why would it have to take the 30 days from that date of the reinstitution?
Because the country would need to establish that the Iraqi national is utilizing their currency, not the U.S. dollar, and the U.S. dollar now is a dormant reserve currency and not being utilized on a day-to-day basis for the purchase of goods and services in country.
Okay, so they would have to be monitored, in other words.
They'd have to demonstrate that they're using their own currency in country.
Oh, okay, I got you. That makes sense. I got you. Okay. Have you been hearing about the shortage in coins here in America? We've been having shortage in coins. Is that any difference between Iraq having a shortage of fuels or not having any fuels at all there?
No. Now we're getting into domestic politics. I think, well, I don't want to get sidetracked too much. I'm not real happy about what's going on. There's also the phenomena of people not taking cash. Now, one of the excuses I've heard, and I roll my eyes, is because they're afraid that they'll get the COVID-19 if they touch the money. I think this is a convenient excuse to try to move to digital currency. Look at EU to see what's going on. for example, if you're in an EU nation, you could have €1 million in a bank, but you're only allowed to withdraw, depending on the country, between 1,000 and 2,500 euros in cash from that bank on a daily basis. So it's it's like the Roach Motel. It's easy to put it in; it's harder to get it out. It's kind of their way, and they can control the money. They can control the people. So I don't like what's going on, but that's detached from what we're talking about here.
Oh, okay. But that was my idea. I thought it was also trying to use an excuse to go to digital currency as well. But all right, I mean, you pretty much answered some of my questions. And again, I want to thank you, and you do have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Our next caller is area code 312-312. I'm going to take a wild guess that that's Les.
Yes, indeed. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for taking my call. How are you?
Yes, sir. What's going on today?
Just a question with this deletion of the zeros mess. I wanted to know, how long does it take? I keep getting these doggone texts. Who's texting me? But anyway, how long does it take to actually delete the zeros? How long would that take?
Well, deleting the zeros is a light switch, all right? And all you got to do is walk across the room and flip the switch. The reason that the zeros have not been deleted, in my view, is because the people that are benefiting from the status quo don't want to see it happen. But basically, they've announced they've collected over 95% of the provisional currency. So there's very little left. Of the remaining 5%, I would suspect that most of that is in the hands of law-abiding Iraqi nationals. Some of it, unfortunately, is in the hands of some nefarious people that want to see that think they're going to score by exchanging that money at the international rate, and some of them may in fact do that. But at this point, the nation-state of Iraq, the only solution to their problem is to reinstate their currency. Now, they're getting by with the auctions and the tariffs at the outlet centers, but there's so much corruption even there that profit's being watered down. So that's one of the in our equation of why we see the reinstitution between September and January.
Okay. One last thing. Now, you were involved in the Kuwaiti RV. You exchanged, and
right.
They had pronounced that they were not going to do it, and then a day or two later, they actually did it. Is that correct?
Well, they did it. They announced quickly they were going to do it, but they had two provisos. One was that you had to exchange in country, and the second was you only had 90 days to do it, and then it was null and void.
Okay. So is it possible we can get that same effect here?
No.
They're saying we...
No, they're not.
Okay, why not?
One. Remember, the situation in Kuwait was totally different than the situation in Iraq. We've had 17 years of the international community purchasing the Iraqi dinar and lending them money, and these people want their money back with interest. That's different than the scenario in Kuwait. Kuwait was done in 18 months. We're pushing 18 years in Iraq. That's the difference. They dumped almost $4 trillion into Iraq since 2003. That's the difference. Once the deletion of the 3 zeros occurs, the lower denoms and coinage are released to the general public. The Iraqi nationals are utilizing their own currency in country, and the U.S. dollar is subordinated to a dormant reserve currency. Then we'll see the revaluation. When that happens, international investors can go to the banks in the respective nation states and exchange the currency for whatever the rate will be.
Okay. That's all I got. Say hi to the professor. Have a great day. Thanks again, Jim.
Will do. Thanks for the call, Les.
All righty.
Well, Les was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. If the things we've discussed are of interest, I strongly suggest you contact us and get our no-obligation package. At the very least, you will learn a lot about what's going on and how all of this works. You're certainly free to contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. If you do decide to proceed, everything you need is included in the package. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks very much for taking the time to listen to our call once again. Have a great week and speak with you next Wednesday. Bye-bye, everyone.